Well, we're going to take our deep dive now, and you're our first guest for Let's Talk About Mental Health.
Mm.
Because as you know, we need to break the stigma. We need to make it, you know, I just don't even like the word normal, but we need to make it a better, bigger part of the conversation so that people who are struggling or have struggled or have loved ones who are struggling, we got it, that stigma, we've got to bring that down. Can you describe a time that you experienced a mental health crisis, and if it wasn't you, then a loved one?
I would have to say my growing up, if you can hear me, as I'm being raised
Okay.
as a child. Um, I, I'm not 100% sure on what you mean by a mental health crisis, but the way that I was raised was in a very dysfunctional family. Is that anything about a mental health crisis?
Well, absolutely,
Oh,
because when I say mental health crisis, it can be any time of um disorder, meaning, a time of depression, a time of anxiety, a time of whatever it is where the equilibrium is just a little bit off.
off balance. Okay, I call that off balance.
Yes, off balance.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
so growing up, you were raised in a dysfunctional household.
yeah, and I was put down a lot. I was the youngest of four kids, and nobody really liked me that well. So,
Oh.
but it was just something that you had to go through at that age. When you're very young, you don't have a choice. You either believe what they tell you, or you don't have any other choice if you want to live. I mean,
Right,
you have to just kind of assume that that's truth, because all these people that are older than you are telling you the same thing. You're no good and blah blah blah. And I don't want to go into the whole thing, but just a lot of put downs, and you just, like I say, you just have to go through it because that's what apparently I set up to be able to overcome in this lifetime. That's how I see it. I see it that I came into this lifetime saying, okay, this is what I want to um, experience in this lifetime. And everything that we experience is meant to overcome. And so that was my big one to overcome, is to believe that I am good enough. You might be able to relate to
yes, I
that.
can relate to that, absolutely. Now tell me and I'm sure there was a process involved and it took stages, but how did you start to get out of that, to believe you're good enough?
Well, I had to get out of the house. So at 18, I moved out of the house the day after I turned 18. And because I couldn't change anything while I was in the house, while I was in that environment. So once I got out, then I started, kind of exploding in different areas, and started to experience life. And that included drinking and being promiscuous and doing all these things, just trying to figure out life. So, and at the same time I started with counseling, and my whole adulthood was geared towards trying to figure out how to be happy. That's what
Mm,
the books are for too. Some of the books that I've written is still trying to figure out how to be happy. I think I'm
right,
getting there now, but
right.
so it's a lifetime of just overcoming, and like you say, little by little and step by step. And you try one thing, if it doesn't work, try another thing, and maybe that works a little bit, and maybe something else works a little bit differently, and you just keep going. But when you are unhappy, it's very important to try to find that happiness. And I would do anything just to try to find that happiness, however that meant, and whatever. I needed to do. I was really, really lucky in my lifetime. As an adult, I was free to do whatever I wanted to do and whatever felt right inside me. A lot of people don't have that. They
Hmm.
don't have that inner freedom to be able to do that. And so I tried lots of different things. And like I say, every one of them did something different. And I think the thing that made the most impact was when I was the client of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And that really boosted me up a lot. And that's why I became a hypnotherapist too, is to help people do what I help them in the ways that I was helped
Right.
years ago.
Okay, this is, God, this is so interesting. That's why I love having these conversations. Would you say that that is still the goal of your adulthood, is to find happiness?
No, I found it.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, you found it. Tell me about that.
um, there's still other things that could, make it better, I guess. But as I sit in my little house on my 5 acres of property out in the middle of nowhere,
Mhm.
and this whole place is just nourishing to my soul. I can't ask for any more. I mean, I don't know what else I would want.
Right.
And I
Great.
do my pickleball sometimes, and I do this and I do that. And um, so one of the lessons in that, I've learned so much, but I wanted to share this one with you,
Sure.
Rechelle. This
Yes.
one is, even when your ego begs to spout smart things, remember, in the big picture, you truly only know a bunch of incorrect beliefs. So just accept who you are and go dance.
Oh, I love that. Accept who you are and go dance. That's the perfect conclusion. Yes. Fabulous. Okay, so even when your ego begs to spout smart things.
Smart things. Remember, in the big picture, you truly only know a bunch of incorrect beliefs. That's what beliefs
Okay.
are. They're just incorrect old things. So just accept who you are and go dance
Okay.
or go play pickleball.
Okay. Wow. Yes. Yeah, that's that conclusion. Accept who you are and go dance, play pickleball. Yes, that's beautiful. Really beautiful. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who is struggling with their mental health?
Find those moments in time where you can be quiet. Like I said, I live on 5 acres, and the my environment really nourishes my soul. And that's really important for someone to do. Maybe it's their garden. Maybe it's, whatever it is that really feels good to them and that they feel so much better when they're doing it or when they're in it, like in nature. And make sure that you have time, take time to just be quiet and be in nature and be in places that nourish your soul and rejuvenate.
Right. That's very good. That's very good. And that seems to be a really good antidote for so many things that we go through, times of great stress, times of confusion, fill in the blank, so many different things. A good counter action is being quiet, taking that time to be quiet, to be
Mhm.
out in nature, to be still. And I think it was just yesterday I was feeling really stressed about a lot of stuff that's going on, kind of the juggling of responsibilities and the parent who's failing health wise and, all of that sort of stuff. And it was one of those Calgon, Take Me Away. Do you remember that commercial?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah, it was that moment. It was that moment. And I thought, I'm going to do something right now. I'm just going to stop for me, Just, I mean, that's all gonna be there. It's not going anywhere. It's
Yeah.
gonna be there in an hour. And I went and I had my nails done, which
All
is
right.
not necessarily something that I do with any kind of regularity, but I thought, and I did not, I resisted the temptation to get on my phone. I know I can get stuff done right here while they're doing my toes or they're doing that hand, and I can, that. Or I can just scroll mindlessly. And I made and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing those things, but for me in that moment, I made the decision to just stop and
There you go.
to be quiet and just to be. And I'm almost getting teary thinking about how powerful it was. It was such a good reminder to me that what you're talking about, finding the moments to be quiet. And I think sometimes they have to be very deliberate and very intentional, because the next thing you know, the day is over. And
Exactly.
it
You
just
have to
goes,
prioritize it.
yes, yes, yes. So thank you. That is such a great reminder. And it really reinforces that practice of, you actually have to take the time.
Yeah.
You do, because it will just, yeah, will just go, and then you didn't do it. And then maybe, like for me, not handling the stress well, or, it's so important that you're in the mix of the priorities, that you're not forgotten.
Yeah. I like that, in the mix of the priorities, because we prioritize everybody but ourselves and everything
Yes,
except our own well-being.
yes. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, very good. Well, I'm really enjoying our conversation. What
me too.
advice would you give to somebody, or how would you suggest we all begin to remove that stigma of mental health? Because, not that long ago, people did not readily say, "Oh, I had a season of depression," or I've had panic attacks," or whatever it is. That there was like, oh, you wanted to do anything but not actually have to say that.
So your question is, um,
How do we remove the stigma? What are your suggestions for, I mean, for lack of a better word, normalizing it?
how does one not do what is? Like for me, it was just a given when I was growing up that, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. It just is what it was.
Right.
And I had to, as an adult, try to correct that. So sometimes things just are.
Yes.
Um, and then also sometimes the correction of it is the evolution of our soul. And that's what the overcoming of it is very important. We all will try to do that in all sorts of different ways. But as far as personally and individually, if you can just like eat well, surround yourself with supportive people, ask for God help, ask for spiritual help, and then just wait it out until the cycle moves to a different moment in time. 'Cause I don't know about you, but
Yes.
with me, it will go in waves. I'll get down, I'll start getting awful thoughts about myself, because the first thing that I do when I start getting down is blame myself. I don't blame other people, I blame myself. Oh, there must be something wrong with me, and going through that whole cycle. And then something will happen. It's like, oh, it's not me. And then everything's good for a while. So just wait it out, knowing that there's this cycle that goes on, and until you can overcome it, then you'll just have to wait it out. And I don't know about the stigma for other people. I kind of got stuck on that because I'm not sure exactly how to answer that. So I hope that answer was
Well, no, it's your answer. And so there's never any wrong answers here at all. I mean, the whole idea is that, you get to be you, show up, and we have this conversation, and we may or may not align, and it really and ultimately doesn't even matter, because you get to be you, I get to be me, and we kind of navigate this conversation together. I love the point you've made about it being cyclical, and about having some of that is actually waiting it out.
Yeah, it
And
is.
you can't really hurry it. You have to actually go through it. And I really like this. I have a whole picture in my mind of the cycle of it and the waves of it, and then the need and the necessity to wait it out and to be patient. How hard it is when you are in pain. The only thing you want is to hurry it up. Hurry
Yeah.
up. This is so painful. Hurry up, hurry up. But unfortunately, it does not quite work that way.
Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of wisdom that you have shared with us today. Is there anything else that you'd like to say in conclusion?
Hmm. Wherever you go, there you are.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, yeah, exactly, right?
And I wanted to ask you, what's next for you? You've done so many things. What's your next level?
Wow. Wow, Cindy, that's such a lovely question. What's my next thing? Well, I think in this, it's interesting, and we're gonna have a different conversation around this. But I'm not one of those people that typically does a word for the year. But I have a couple of close friends who did a word for the year coming up here, and I ended up doing one as well. It really just came to me really strongly, and it was abide. So ABIDE, abide, and it for
Oh,
me it meant I really think that 2025 is going to be filled with some highs and lows. As I said, that I have a parent who's failing in health, and so I anticipate that being one of the lows. And then for me, the one of the highs would be it'll be 5 years in April that we've put out a weekly episode
wow.
of this podcast. So there's that wonderful high. And then also having republished a book, as we were talking about earlier in our conversation before we got on, um, wanting to do some things around that. And using that book, Standing Tall, A Collection of Hope, which is about the time that our son died, and all of the grief that goes around that, but then also really the gratitude that I learned through that. And I really want to get out there in 2025 and have a lot of conversations about gifts after loss, about, for me,
Wow.
tracing the hand of God in all of the many ways he worked this very hard thing for my good. And I would like to help inspire and empower people to do the same for themselves, so that they can actually see, oh my gosh, this happened because of that, because of that. Oh my gosh. And it
Yeah.
becomes absolutely mind-blowing. So thank you for asking.
This,
That's so sweet.
that is so important because, well, my cousin that I was telling you about,
Right.
she had a son who died. He had a heart problem. He was like 21, so he was an adult, but he was still her child.
Yes.
And my sister had a stillborn.
Mm,
And I believe that, I don't know, I'm not that close to her, but I think that a lot of her depression problems stem from that.
wow.
If I could just give her your book or your website or something,
Sure.
when you get that, um, or yeah, probably your book. Your book's about your son, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I don't talk with her much anymore. We had a falling out after my mother was sick and had dementia and finally passed. So I know what you're going through with that, trying to help an
Right.
elderly person. But I would love for her to, because she's oblivious to
Right.
that, you know, part of her life that I think is still affecting her today.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Cindy. And let's chat about more about that in just a moment when we finish up our conversation. Where can people find you? Where can they find you?
I have a website. It's CindyAttar.com or CindyAttar.com.
Got
And
it.
that's with my hypnotherapy. I'm coming out with a website for my books as soon as it gets finalized. So I don't have that one yet.
But they'll be able to get that through the other, right?
Yes.
You're gonna
Yeah.
somehow be linked in some way. Wow. Well, you are doing a lot
Mm.
of really important things, and I feel, what would be a good word for it? I feel very encouraged and excited by the growth that you have done since you were a small girl, even though obviously I didn't know you then, but to hear how you started out and how small and probably insignificant you felt in those years, and then to have that you've really grown through that and sort of passed that in a way, even though obviously it will always be a part of you, you've blossomed. And I think that
Oh,
risk to
thank
blossom,
you.
I think, is so beautiful, and to take that opportunity and do it, I just think it's
Oh,
great. So thank
thank you
you.
so much. Wow, I feel so good.
Good. Well, thank you. And it was such a pleasure having you on the show.
Very nice to meet you too.